Hello. Welcome to Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. My name is Mary Bear Shannon. I am a reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library. I'm glad that you could join us for our second edition of Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. We are doing these live videos while we are staying at home because of the pandemic. So I'm glad to have you here today. I also wanted to encourage everybody who's watching tonight to also join our Facebook group by the same name, Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. This is a great place for people to share recipes, ask questions, talk about things they're having to substitute in recipes because many of us are not as easily able to get to the grocery store, and sometimes there are shortages. So that is a good place. It's also a good place just to show off what you've been doing at home. I know many of you all are cooking way more than you normally do. In many ways, it's just a great, it's a bright spot to a situation that's not so great, that we're actually able to spend some more time on things that we like to do. For me, that's cooking, and I don't always get a chance to do as much cooking as I'd like. I also wanted to give a plug for our cookbook club. This is a group that's been meeting for almost 5 years in person at the library, and I'm hoping that folks that are part of that group will show up to this event today. But I think that is the way it works is that we select a cookbook every month, and everybody cooks a recipe from it, and then they bring it to share. So it's a potluck every month, and it is a really great way of it's a great way to socialize, to talk about food, and when this crisis is over, the hope is that we will all be back to meeting together in person soon. But for now, we are meeting online, and the Cookbook Club is due to meet next Monday. That's the 20th of April at 6:30. We are going to meet by Zoom conference, and I have published the link both on our Facebook event as well as our website event. So please be on the lookout for that link and join us. We had hoped to do a Bobby Flay cookbook. And of course, we can't. The cookbook is stored safely away in the library. So I have asked folks to either cook something that they really like, maybe a family favorite, or to go onto foodnetwork.com and choose another Bobby Flay recipe. There are plenty of them on that website. So I hope that you can join us for Cookbook Club. Again, it is April 20th at 6:30 p.m. You will need to follow the Zoom link. If you've never done Zoom before, please give the reference desk a call. We are there to help you with any tech needs that you have. And we would love to be able to help you set up a Zoom account. It's really easy. It's free. And then you can participate, hopefully, in some other events that we're hoping to do in the next couple of weeks. My Hooked on History group will meet at the end of the month. My colleagues' nonfiction book group that will happen later on will also be Zoom. So please take advantage of some events that are happening through that video platform. So again, that's next Monday on the 20th. I did want to start with a couple of some quotes again about cooking to kind of get us started. The first one is, of course, Julia Child. And as you see, I've got my pearls again, trying to channel Julia Child, since I certainly am a novice to any show about cooking. And I am going to do a demonstration later, so I'll need her good karma. But the quote I have here from Julia Child is, "Always start out with a larger pot than what you think you'll need." And boy, have I needed that more often than I care to admit, that I've started a dish and said, wow, this dish is just too small. So I like that a lot. So I've got a couple people have joined us. Hi, Cindy, and hi, Val. Again, my name is Mary Bear Shannon. I'm a reference librarian at the library, and we are doing Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. Another quote I have here is actually by Truman Capote, which I think is interesting. It's from his book, Summer Crossing. And this is the quote. "Oh, I adore to cook. It makes me feel so mindless in a worthwhile way." And I think that's kind of interesting because I think cooking can be a distraction. I'm not sure you really can be mindless, but you can be it in, and I like his wording about being mindless in a worthwhile way. I think it just, like I said, it's a distraction from what's going on around us. And so I'd like to look at cooking that way as a nice distraction from thinking about other things. Another quote, this is by Louise Fresco. She's a Dutch scientist, and she works in global sustainable food production. And her quote is, "Food in the end is our tradition. It's something holy. It's not about nutrients and calories. It's about sharing. It's about honesty. It's about identity." And I would say that is really truth in many ways. And especially someone who works in food production, I think it's interesting that she looks really beyond the nuts and bolts of trying to feed the world, but also, but really thinking about what food really means to us. And hopefully, like I said, in this time of crisis, we hope that food can be a kind of some glue that binds us together when everything else seems like it's really unsure. And then my last quote is, "A recipe has no soul. You as the cook must bring soul to the recipe." And I think that's also very true. That's Thomas Keller. He's an American chef. So my beginning question is, we've just passed and are still in a holiday time. Passover started last Wednesday, and I know there've been a lot of celebrations. And then Easter was yesterday. And I know a lot of people had to meet virtually. And we talked a little bit about that last week. But I'm just really curious about what you cooked and how did it turn out? Are there some family traditions, some family favorites that have to always be cooked? And you can respond in the comments or send them to our Facebook page later. But I will tell you that we do a pretty traditional ham, and we did a spiral ham this yesterday, but it is one of my favorites. I love ham. And then I do a hash brown casserole. I guess you could see it as very retro, something you might have made in the 50s and the 60s. It's hash browns. It has onions, cream of chicken soup, cheese, sour cream, and then crushed cornflakes on the top. But it is very yummy. And, as of this broadcast, there's none left. It was eaten, I think, before everybody went to bed last night. So seconds and thirds, it is definitely one of those family favorites that I think basically has to be cooked every time, but it's quite good. So Cindy says that she does a brunch on Easter, and she made quiche and mimosas. So very good. It was funny. I think I mentioned last time that I was watching Julia Child's first season of The French Chef, and she cooked a quiche in one of the first episodes, and it was just really interesting to see, what a long lasting and but a recipe that really holds up over time and is still very yummy. So again, my name is Mary Bear Shannon. I am the reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library. And we are doing Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine on this Monday afternoon at 5. It has been a really nasty, rainy day, and the sun literally just came out like 15 minutes or a half hour before this program started. So I'm glad to finally see the sun. I'm sure you guys are as well. I guess my other topic that I wanted to talk about was substitutions again. because again, I think we were all really struggling with not always having the ingredients that we need, and then always having to and having to really scramble. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that. Welcome, Michelle Del Rosso, and she's telling us about what she did this last for the holidays. She said, we did a traditional -1 since we are less people, a spiral ham, sweet potato casserole, yum, and with butter and brown sugar and a pineapple stuffing. Wow, that sounds really good. Did not do the green bean casserole this year. Couldn't get all the ingredients. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I was actually surprised that my husband found the onion, the fried onions. That's sometimes not always found. But she said it was great. So that's terrific. So substitutions. We talked a little bit last week that I had substituted because I didn't have cream of tartar, and I was able to substitute it with some lemon juice. But I also thought I did some research this week about some other substitutions online. And, the big one that I think is I always come across is if somebody's asking, or if a recipe's asking for fresh herbs, and I don't have it. Right now, the weather has been fairly nice, and much of my herb garden came back that's sitting on my deck. And we've actually been using it for the last couple of weeks, so much so that we really have to stop because I think we're going to kill the plant. And so as much as I love using our fresh herbs, I'm afraid that if we use more of them, we're going to kill the plant. Same, I have a very large thyme bush. I guess I would call it a bush now. It's a plant, but it keeps coming back. But I've used a lot of that. And so the research says that if you're going to substitute dry herbs, you should definitely use less. For 2 teaspoons of fresh, you should use 1 teaspoon of dry because the flavors are a lot more concentrated. So that's one substitute. The research I found was, and I think this is maybe this is common sense, but for garlic, it said you could substitute an onion for garlic, scallions, or shallots. And we talked last time that shallots sometimes have a garlicky taste to them, but you could also do garlic powder or salt. A lot of people say it's just not as good, but if in a pinch, that could work. For fresh tomatoes, and of course, right now there's not a whole lot of fresh tomatoes, but canned tomatoes and paste. Although, right at the beginning there, I found that a lot of the tomato products were really low, and we weren't able to find a whole lot. I think people were stocking up, but I think that's a little better now. For scallions, if you've got chives in your garden, and if you have it in your garden, it should come back. It is a perennial. Of course, if you use too much of it, it won't bloom. It's just about to bloom. But chives is a good substitute for scallions. Also, just parsley and basil. But I really think chives would be one of the best substitutes for a scallion. Of course, fresh corn. Canned corn. I mean, I know people don't use as much canned products, but tell you, it's great to have in your pantry just in case you've got a recipe that calls for it and you don't have it at fresh or frozen. Jasmine rice, any basic rice or arborio rice. For white wine, you can always just admit it, or you could, if you have white wine vinegar, that would be an okay substitution as well. It says use about a quarter of the amount of wine, I guess, use the vinegar. And then we talked about this last time. Some people were really struggling to find eggs. And Riche, who is our youth services manager, suggested applesauce might be a good substitute for eggs. But the other thing, this was really interesting. You could substitute the liquid that comes from soaking chickpeas. It's called aquafaba. Never heard that before. And actually, you can use that, and it will whip just like an egg. So if you are actually looking for something that that would resemble a meringue, that might work. So again, it's the liquid that you use to soak chickpeas. I guess there's something about that soaking that takes on a quality that would allow it to be whipped. I'm also seeing from Valerie. She made a beef stroganoff yesterday. She says, not unusual for me for a holiday, but still something special. I didn't have any Worcestershire sauce. I'll never be able to pronounce that. So I looked up for every tablespoon substitute soy sauce, lemon juice, and sugar, and a dash I'm just going to see more here, of hot sauce. So that's kind of an interesting substitution. I did see that sometimes you can interchange Worcestershire sauce and soy sauce, and a little bit of water as well. And then heavy cream. They suggest coconut milk, and you could also just use vanilla ice cream. I mean, because it is cream, I would say probably something that doesn't have a whole lot of fillers in it would probably be the best. But that might be, but they also suggested coconut milk for heavy cream. So the other thing I thought we could talk about, and I've heard this a lot, is people not being able to find yeast, that there's a shortage of yeast. And so there are some other leaveners that you can use. You can use baking soda, baking powder. You can use eggs and egg whites as leaveners. And then, again, Riche posted on the Facebook page, the Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. She put the recipe for a sourdough starter. So if you had some yeast, but you were not sure if you were going to find more, you could start a sourdough starter. And I don't think you actually have to use any more yeast if you keep your starter fed. And there are some stipulations to keeping it fed. So you may want to give that a try as well. So that's, again, my name is Mary Bear Shannon, and I am the reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library, and this is Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. So I wasn't really sure what to demonstrate today, but I thought one of the things I get asked a lot, and some of you may have attended this event, we have a tea and trivia event in January. It is 3 courses of high tea, tea and scones and sandwiches and pastries. And I usually I cater I get a lot of it catered, just because it's just a lot of work. But I do make scones, and people really like them. So I thought I would demonstrate my scone recipe. I can't really say it's mine. It's Alton Brown's. So I do need to give credit where credit is due. So I thought I would show that to you now. So I'm going to do a little transfer here of my laptop. So give me a second. And you're going to get to see a little bit of my kitchen here. And again, I need to make sure that you won't get to see my face, but you will get to see what I am doing here. So bear with me here. So again, this is going to be this is Alton Brown's scone recipe. And it never fails. It is one of those that just is tried and true. So you start with 2 cups of flour. So that's what I have here. You have 4 teaspoons of baking powder. So that is your leavener. Okay. And you have 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/3 of a cup of sugar. So I'm going to put that in. This is definitely more of a sweet bread. And so sugar, and then you need some fat. So you have 4 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of shortening. That is another thing. If you've got shortening on your shelf, it has a fairly long, stable life on your shelf. And if you run out of butter, shortening is a great substitute. So at this point, I'm supposed to cut in the fats with the dry. And I don't have a pastry knife, so I just use 2 knives and I just cut it in. So it is really as simple as that. They want you to cut in the fat with the dry. Also just kind of stir up your dry ingredients. And then you're just really just cutting your fats here. And eventually you want this to look like kind of like little peas, kind of like what you would for a pie. But I'm just going to quickly cut this in and get it to the consistency. Again, you use your fats to make these light and fluffy because the fats will melt. And if you have little tidbits of your shortening in your butter, it will leave nice pockets, airy pockets in your scone. So, and that's the one thing I think people say about these scones is they tend to be nice and light and fluffy because, of course, they have really all the good stuff. The other things we're going to be putting in here is cream and an egg. And I had everything together except for the cream and the egg, so I'm going to have to run to my fridge in a minute. Okay, just a little bit more. And again, it kind of resembles small peas. And again, if you had a pastry knife or a pastry, I don't know, I guess it's a pastry cutter. I just don't have one of those, so I always just use my 2 knives and just cross them and kind of close together so you're getting all the pieces of fat and cutting them into the dry ingredients. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but there is little pieces. It's a little hard with the light, but you can see there's like little pieces of fat still in there. So I'm going to go get my cream and my egg. Okay, again, all you can see is the bottom half of me, so attractive. All right, so we got 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. That's why this is so good. It's got the heavy cream in it. Of course, if you want to cut that, you could use half and half. You could use whole milk. It's definitely not as good as the cream, but you have to do what you have to do, and you have to do what you have in your house. Okay, so this is we're just going to whip this up together and make sure you break up the egg in the cream. Okay, and you just pour this in, and you're going to mix this up together. Okay, and then you're going to use what Alton Brown says is about a handful of craisins. There we go. And we are going to stir this up till it all comes together. And eventually we're going to turn this on to I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way. Some of this is all going to come together, and we're going to turn it onto a floured surface. And then I'm going to show you how to roll this out. And then I'm going to show you, and then kind of cutting them into biscuits. I use just rounds. You can do any kind of cookie cutter you'd like. Say if you're doing something for Valentine's Day, you could do a heart-shaped cookie cutter. I actually just use a glass to do mine. So this is coming together now, and I kind of scrape this down with my finger, and then I am going to put a floured, and I'm just going to push this back so you can see this. a little bit better. This is my floured surface. And I'm going to kind of turn this dough. It's just about come together. I'm going to do a little bit more mixing here on the counter, and then I'm going to roll it out. So and of course I'm glad I have my my apron on, just because I get flour everywhere. Eventually it'll be all over my face. I'm a bit of a messy baker. So we're basically just working in all of this additional flour. It's getting to be a really nice texture. It's going to be ready to roll out. And put this away. And then it really just kind of put it into a round. You don't need to work with it too much because the heat of your hands will actually heat up the butter and the shortening, and then it'll be harder to work with. So, okay, so we are rolling this out, and you get it to, I guess, about 1/2 inch, maybe a little less. It's supposed to make 12, so, and then I just use a glass, and I am going to cut them out, just so, and eventually they will go to a tray. And again, they should make about 12. You may not get all of them, but I usually get about a dozen. Okay. All right. So this is how it's going to look. These are the size of them, and they will puff up. And then I want to show you the final product. I cooked them earlier. I'm going to pull these out. And like magic, they're done. These are the scones. They're nice and brown on the top, and they're delicious with butter or lemon curd or clotted cream. So we will put these in a little while, but I wanted to show you how I did this dough. So we're going to head back here. Does not go as smooth as the Food Network, so please forgive me. I'm going to plug myself back in here. I will put that recipe on the Facebook page, and I will so you can see all of the recipe, all of the details of how to make scones. Since I looked at the comments, I've seen Nikki Senecal, welcome. Catherine Federico, welcome. Hi, Diane. We've got Zepra here. Thank you for coming. And some of the comments are, Nikki, we were talking about substitutions. Nikki said, if you don't use chemicals in your lawn, onion grass is edible too. And I am married to someone who's all about edible plants and weeds out in the yard. And if things get really bad, I will have some things to eat. I'm not sure if I'm really there yet, but I do have somebody who is really into that as well. Catherine talks about her husband making a sourdough starter a few weeks ago, and she says it works great. And Diane said she was looking for a scone recipe, so I will put Alton Brown's recipe on the Facebook page. So if you haven't joined the Facebook page, Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine, please do that, because there are some great recipes, and it's really great to see what everybody is making. Michelle says, oh, what temp? Sorry, thank you. 375. Now I have a fast oven, so mine is hotter than normal. So mine goes about 12 to 13 minutes. It says 15. But mine, again, is a faster oven. So I put it for 10, and I always check it. And then I usually put it in for another couple of minutes. When I first moved to this house and I had this oven, I burned a lot of things until I figured out, okay, I got to cut the time and check it, because it definitely was hotter than other ovens I had used. Okay, so Valerie says she wants some scones. Sorry, Val, I probably won't see you for a little while, but it is a super easy recipe. So easy to make, and it just always turns out. So the last thing I just wanted to have you all think about is just who taught you how to cook? I think it's something that I think a lot about, especially when I'm thinking about, how do I know this? How do I know that this is how to do something? I mean, some of it is experience, but it also makes me think about, well, who taught me that? So I was telling you that the recipe for the hash brown casserole, I mean, that's from my stepmother. She made that years ago for Easter or Thanksgiving or something, and I've been making it ever since. She also is the one that taught me how to make coffee. She was always like, a teaspoon for every cup and then one for the pot. But my mother taught me how to cook. And also my stepdad had some great recipes. He brought things when he and my mom married that I still use. At Thanksgiving, we do something called turkey roll-ups, which is chopped turkey on a biscuit, and then you roll it up and you make pinwheels and bake it off. And that totally came from his kitchen. And so it's interesting to hear what people's experiences are. So, if you want to put in the comments, who taught you how to cook? What are your memories of first cooking? That would be great. The other thing I did in high school is I had a kind of a gap in my schedule my senior year, and I took food prep. And I was amazed at how much chemistry I learned in that class about stimulating gluten and making yeast spreads, making white sauces, things that I have taken with me all these years. So it's just really interesting where we gather all this knowledge. So I think that's it for me. If you've got things that you'd like to comment about who taught you how to cook, please go to our Facebook page. That is a great way just to share ideas and stay connected during this time of pandemic. But I did want to tell you just about a couple more programs that are coming up this week. We have tomorrow, this is a brand new program. It's called COVID Check-In. And it is our health librarian, Jennifer Kuhns, is going to do a program at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays. And it's going to really give us the most up-to-date resources about the virus and about our response as a society and as a community. So she will be presenting that tomorrow at 11 o'clock. That I think is going to be a pre-recorded program, so you can check in anytime and just hear what she is learning as our health librarian. But if you have questions, please email her. She would love to tackle any of your questions. You can reach her at Kuhns, Kuhns, at haverfordlibrary.org, and she would love to hear from you. Then we continue with our Wine and Words Wednesday, every Wednesday at 5. Join us for because it's April and it is National Poetry Month. We are doing poetry for the next couple of weeks. And bring your glass of wine. If you don't have wine, anything is acceptable for kind of this happy hour and literary happy hour, which is Wednesdays at 5. So please join us. That is a Facebook Live event. And then another new program on Thursday will be Family Craft Night. It's going to be this Thursday at 7 o'clock. And this is going to be doing crafts with anything in your home. We're trying to do crafts with things that we know you'll have, like toilet paper rolls. So join with your family or just by yourself to kind of get those creative juices flowing. Our librarians will be doing that as a Facebook Live event on this Thursday at 7. And then lastly, just another plug for the Cookbook Club. We will be meeting virtually this coming Monday, the 20th at 6:30. I do have a Zoom link. It is in the Facebook event. It's also on the website, in the website calendar. So you can find that. And if you need help getting set up with Zoom, please give the reference desk a call. We are answering the phones between 10 and 5, Monday through Friday. There's always a human being you can talk to help you get set up with Zoom. So it is great to see everybody who is here today. We are, we're missing you all. And I know the books miss you guys too. So we hope that this will all be over safely in due time. But in the meantime, keep joining us here on Facebook Live and virtually. So be safe, and we'll see you next week.